Hey, what's going on, guys? ETP coming at you guys with another video today, and in this commentary I'm going to be talking a little bit about the NBA draft, kind of some of my projections and opinions on where I think guys will end up going and what I think teams should do with their picks. We had the NBA draft lottery last night, so now we have the draft order set, and you can start to kind of see some things starting to happen that can give us clues as to what these teams are going to do with their picks and what would fit their team best and stuff like that. So I'll go ahead and get into that in a second. But what you guys are watching in the background is a game of NBA 2K15, obviously, between the Timberwolves and the Lakers, but Jahlil Okafor and Karl Towns are in this game. Karl Towns playing for the Timberwolves and Jahlil Okafor playing for the Lakers, because that is how I feel that the top two picks are going to shake out. So while I was watching the draft lottery, and it got down to the end. Obviously, the Knicks got the fourth pick, and then it went to commercial break. So after the Knicks got the fourth pick, that was kind of like, that kind of shocked everybody because they had the second best odds to get the number one overall pick. Theoretically, they should have gotten the number two pick, but the ping pong balls didn't fall their way, and they ended up getting number four. So, a lot of Knicks fans were kind of mad about that, but I really don't think they have too much room to complain. I'll go into that in a second. But basically, when the top three was the Timberwolves, the Lakers, and the Sixers, and they hadn't, announced who was getting which pick, I was really hoping that it would be Timberwolves number one, Lakers number two, and Sixers number three, and that's the way that it turned out. And the reason why I think that is really ideal for all three of those teams is because the players that they'll end up getting will end up fitting their system and fitting their entire scheme really, really well. Obviously things could change, but as I see it, I see Karl Towns going number one overall. I think that's great for Minnesota. I don't think they should go with Okafor, even though I definitely think Okafor is a safer pick. I think you can almost pencil in Okafor to one day become an all-star and possibly become like a franchise player, and he's definitely a guy you can build around. I mean, you look at Orlando back when they had Dwight Howard, they were able to completely build their team around Dwight Howard, surround him with shooters, and they ended up having really good success, made it to the NBA Finals and stuff. I definitely think Okafor is that type of player, but I feel like with Minnesota, they've got all that youth and athleticism, and I think that Karl Anthony Towns would fit perfectly with that. He'd be a rim protector. You've got him running the floor a lot better than Okafor does. You got Wiggins, you got Levine, and then also they have Pekovic, who's definitely not a bad center, and he's more of that low post under the rim type of guy. Similar to Okafor, obviously nowhere near as talented offensively as Okafor is, but I definitely think Karl Anthony Towns would be a more solid pick for the Timberwolves. Second, I obviously think Okafor will go to the Lakers, and I don't know about that pick. I don't know 100% about the fit, but I don't see you being able to go wrong with that. Julius Randle, they drafted him last year, so they won't have a ton of floor spacing. Obviously, Kobe, he's kind of at the end of his career. He'll be retiring after next season. Also, he's not a crazy good three-point shooter. And then Jordan Clarkson, he's not a great three-point shooter. And then Julius Randle obviously can't really step out, and neither can Okafor. So that's a little bit of a concern maybe. They'll definitely need to try to add some shooters to be able to space the floor in free agency. But I definitely think that's a no-brainer, and that's a relatively good fit for Okafor. And the reason why I was so happy with the Sixers not getting a top two pick is because for a fact if they would have gotten top two, they would have drafted either Okafor or Towns, whichever one was available. And that would have just been a horrible move for the NBA in general, because the Sixers, the way they've just been, their strategy has just basically been tanking and just gathering as many assets as they can possibly get. And it's gotten to the point where, if they would have gotten, say, the number one overall pick or the number two overall pick and gotten one of those big guys, they just have a log jam, in the front court. They already have Nerlens Noel and Joel Embiid, and then they'd have either Okafor or Towns, and that just wouldn't work out well. Somebody would end up getting traded, and the Sixers wouldn't really make a ton of progress, I don't think. But now that they're at number three, I see them taking D'Angelo Russell. They could take Moutier, but I definitely think Russell would be the more solid pick, the more, the safer pick. And I think that's going to work out well for them. I think Russell could definitely turn into a star, and, he's got all the makings of being a franchise type of player. A good teammate, a good floor general. He's got great vision. He's a great passer, great distributor, and he can also score the ball. So I think that'll be a solid pick. Now, at 4, obviously, I have Moutier. I think those top 4 guys are basically consensus picks. I don't see anything changing between those top 3. Maybe Russell and Moutier switch spots, but I doubt it. But the Knicks could possibly look to trade the pick. But assuming they don't trade the pick, I see Moutier as a good fit. The Knicks could really use help everywhere. Obviously, they don't need to get like a small forward, power forward type of player because they got Melo. But other than that, everything is open, and Moutier would be a pretty good fit for them. I definitely think he could develop into a very, very good NBA player. And then once we get out of the top 4, things get a lot more difficult to predict. Personally, at number 5 to Orlando, you could go so many different directions. I think Orlando would probably be better off going with a wing, and that's where I think they could really either pick Mario Hezonja from Croatia or they could pick Justice Winslow, and I definitely think it'll be one of those two guys. You could almost put Porzingis in that area right there too, because he's got so much potential. But I definitely think that the Magic should go with a wing because they've already got Vucevic. They're definitely going to need to try to lock him up. I believe he hits free agency this year, so they need to sign him back. And then Aaron Gordon. Personally, I didn't like that Aaron Gordon pick because he has no position at all. I guess you could consider him a small forward, but he can't shoot to save his life, and he's not super big. So I wasn't really a big fan of that pick when they did that last year, so that kind of messes up what they're doing. They do have Tobias Harris, but Tobias Harris is another guy that's sort of in between a small forward and a power forward. So I think Hezonja would definitely be the better pick over Winslow, just barely, because Hezonja is a really good shooter already, and he could help immediately. And with Elfrid Payton running the point for the Magic, they have basically no shooting ability at all, so they definitely need to add a shooter. At number 6 to Sacramento, I think that's a potential spot where they could get Justice Winslow depending on what they want to do. But I think Willie Cauley-Stein's another guy that's definitely a good fit there. Pair him up with Cousins. You could let Cousins kind of play more of the 4, even though he's a center. As far as body type and everything goes, he could definitely play the 4 because he's a great post player. He's also got a little bit of a mid-range jump shot. So I think that would be a really good, definitely a really, really good front court with him and Cauley-Stein. And Cauley-Stein, hopefully he can develop into a good offensive player because you know for a fact he's going to be an elite defender from day one. He'll be able to step in, protect the rim, and guard basically 4, maybe even 5 positions. So that's definitely a solid pickup. I see them either going with Winslow or Cauley-Stein. And then at 7 to the Nuggets, assuming that the Cauley-Stein goes 6 to the Kings, I think the Nuggets would definitely draft Justice Winslow. They could go Kristaps Porzingis, but I think they would probably go with Winslow. He adds a defender, adds a little bit more offensive potential there, and I think he would fit relatively well with Denver. And then at 8, I have the Pistons taking Kristaps Porzingis, and I honestly think 8 could be a steal for him. He would fit well with Detroit, but really, I mean, that's a guy that has so much potential, possibly the most potential in the entire draft, but it's kind of risky because he's really young, he's really thin. You just hope he's able to fill out and adjust to the NBA game. But, when you're 7'1", I think he's 7 feet to 7'2" or something, and he can shoot the 3 really, really well. So he's the definition of a stretch 4 or a stretch 5, and he would fit with a lot of different teams. It's just a matter of hoping he can develop because he's not going to be ready to contribute a lot right off the bat. Then at number 9, number 9 is a difficult spot as well with Charlotte. I think, assuming that 7 is Justice Winslow, 8 is Kristaps Porzingis, I think they would probably go with Stanley Johnson. I think that would be my choice. But that's definitely another difficult one. They got MKG there. Stanley Johnson is similar to MKG, only I think he's going to end up being a better shooter. Like Michael Kidd-Gilchrist can't shoot at all right now. But I think if Stanley Johnson can transition into a solid 2 guard, that would fit well. Kemba Walker and then Stanley Johnson at the 2, MKG at the 3. Al Jefferson's getting a little bit old, so they could possibly stretch and get Miles Turner. But I don't think that they would. I don't think you can pass on Stanley Johnson at 9 to try to get Miles Turner. I don't think. That's not a knock against Miles Turner, but I definitely think that Stanley Johnson would be more of a solid pick at that position. And then after that, things can get kind of crazy. I mean, going back to the Hornets real quick, they could almost all stretch to get Devin Booker as well to add more shooting because they don't have a ton of shooting. But I think that's a little bit of a stretch. I say they go with Stanley Johnson at 9. And then 10 through 14 is really difficult. 10, you could go Kelly Oubre to Miami, or you could maybe stretch and go Frank Kaminsky or Miles Turner. I don't know. I mean, that's a pick I don't really have too much of an answer for. They could use somebody to replace D-Wade because D-Wade is kind of getting to the end of his career. They just got Dragic, who's a point/2 guard. So they'll probably be set there, assuming he continues to re-sign with them. They just got, Hassan Whiteside's coming on, so they don't really need Miles Turner or Kaminsky or someone like that. So, I'm kind of stuck on the Miami pick, not 100% sure. And then at number 11, assume Miles Turner is available at number 11. I see the Pacers taking him for sure. They could possibly go Cam Payne at 11, but I don't know. I mean, I feel like they're going to need a center because they've already made it clear that they're going to be going to a faster pace of play, which is definitely not going to fit with Roy Hibbert, and he'll be on the outs. I'm assuming he'll still probably end up picking up that player option that he has so he can get paid, and then they'll look to trade him. So that's kind of an unfortunate salary situation with Indiana that they'll have to deal with Hibbert, but I definitely think they'll need to replace him, and Miles Turner's kind of a mobile big guy that I think could fit in and develop. He's also a guy that's probably not going to contribute a lot right away, but he could definitely develop into a solid player. A really big guy, could be a defensive anchor, can run the floor, and he's got a little bit of an outside game as well. At number 12 to Utah, that's another difficult one. Utah has a bunch of different needs. I think if Cam Payne is available at that point, I think you go with him. You could also go with Devin Booker to grab more shooting, or you could go with Frank Kaminsky, or even stretch a little bit more and try to get like Sam Decker as a wing. Those would be decent choices. They pretty much have a lot of different directions they can go at that point, because once you get out of this I'd say top 7, 8 area in the draft, once you get close to that 10 mark, it's kind of wide open for a lot of guys because this draft is so deep. There's so many guys that you could go with after that first elite tier that could end up being very, very good role players in the league, and even some of them transitioning into really good starters. So that's kind of the same way I feel with 13 and 14 with Phoenix and Oklahoma City. I feel like Oklahoma City could definitely use a shooter, so if Devin Booker is available there, I see them taking him. If not, maybe they stretch a little bit and get like Jaren Grant and try to kind of run him at the point with Westbrook as more of a 2, or vice versa, because they're both kind of combo guards. So there's a bunch of different options that you could do with Oklahoma City, and the same with Phoenix as well. So I'm going to just go ahead and close out this video now. This has been a 12.5-minute commentary. I did not know it was going quite that long, but that's just kind of my analysis of the top 14 picks in the NBA draft. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. Definitely let me know in the comment section what you guys are thinking, how you feel about the top 3 or top 4 picks that were announced with the lottery, and who you think guys are going to be going to. I'd definitely be interested to hear that, hear your opinions, and make sure to leave those in the comment section below. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll talk to you guys later.